Hi everybody, welcome back. You're currently watching our latest addition to the Quake Pro League and our fourth series of the day. Flea, it's about to begin.
Indeed, and this should be another interesting one. We've got psygib versus nosfa, two brawlers, two heavy hitters. If you think about the brawlers on the America side of things, those are the first two names that come to mind, at least for me. So this should be a firework type of game.
Absolutely. They're two players that have that similar style, which when they go head to head, I'm going to wait obviously and see what the maps suggest, because that could give us a bit of a different exchange. But you look at these two players and you kind of think of the Corrupted Keeps, you look at the Awokens, maybe the Deep Embrace, those kind of maps where like the brawl just kind of never ends. And then the champions are a bit of an extension on that, where you look at someone like psygib playing a lot of the old Scale Bearer, which nosfa quite rightly removed immediately. Funny I should mention it. But it'll be Molten Falls as our first map, with the Anarchy and Sorlag, Awoken, and ooh, we get to see some Athena. Always a treat to watch Athena at a high level. Versus the Nyx, actually, of psygib, with Doomslayer being taken away, and then Vale BJ versus the Keo. And BJ with nosfa, it's a pretty popular pick for him, if I recall.
Absolutely, it fits his playstyle very nicely as well. It's nice to see some more champion variety, because I feel like in the first 3 games of the day, we basically saw the same picks over and over again. But now we're getting Athena, we're getting Nyx, we're getting the BJ. So quite a few new champions being thrown in the mix. Now, starting off Molten Falls, what stands out right away is, of course, the stack difference, right? nosfa running Sor like a heavy, big-bodied champion versus psygib playing Anarchy, both air-controlled champions, very mobile. But that is going to be a big stack difference for psygib to overcome. Then map 2, Light on Light. We've got Athena versus Nyx. Again, two very mobile, nimble champions that can make the most out of that center area of the Awoken map. And then finally on Vale, psygib once again going for the big body Keel, a champion that he knows and loves very much. And then nosfa is going to try and counter with the BJ.
Now, if we're talking about predictions and how we think this will go, I mean, first of all, I'm actually very curious to see what the people think in chat room. So by all means, let us know who you favor. But nosfa, as of recently, is kind of looking a bit sharper. And this is a matchup that we've always been talking about, I think since Quake Pro League began, right? Because psygib started things off with a very impressive showing, but then again, so did nosfa, and they were kind of battling for that, what everyone considered like top 3 spot of Americas at the time. A lot has happened since then. Different players have come and gone, and different players have had their own rise to power in the Americas, if you will. But there's just something about these two players going head to head that always gets us excited, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Now, last time they played, nosfa won with a 3-0 sweep. Might happen again today. We've seen it in every single match so far. It's been pretty one-sided for a lot of what we've seen today. Now, nosfa has also had a very good track record going into this stage, right? He's beaten Maxter, he's beaten Chain, he's beaten Sip. The only person that he lost against was Rafa, and I think that's, to many players, that just kind of feels like an inevitability when it comes to the weeklies. Whereas on the other hand, psygib has been struggling a lot more. He's only beaten Sip so far, but the players that he did lose to have been absolute top tier, like Rafa, The Hang, Maxter, and so on and so forth. So let's see if psygib can turn things around and get some more momentum going into this week.
But yeah, I think in this instance, I personally believe that nosfa has a bit of an upper hand. I would always love to be proved wrong, for sure, because these weeklies, you never know what you're going to get, and it's always about player development at the end of the day. The Americas on their own have come a long way, because we just see the results get better and better for a lot of the players. There was a time where, with all due respect, Americas at the beginning of Pro League was kind of the Dahang and Rafa show. And a lot of the finals and the opening of Pro League really reflected that, where Dahang and Rafa were the only two players in the global sense that were kind of keeping America far in the brackets. And that could not be more different now. We've seen so many players rise up into that absolute highest end of the food chain, where they've been far into those brackets. They've caused upset after upset. We've seen players like Chain do that before. We are now starting to see players like Xeniku be able to do that. Maxter did the very same thing. It's wonderful to watch an entire part of the world like that just climb and rise to power. It's what Pro League is all about. It's why we have those separate areas, because players can just practice, and then when they go head to head, And at this stage, obviously, it's been in the online realm where, thankfully, the online performs well enough where it can actually be a possibility. It's a mad time, isn't it, Flea?
It absolutely is. Now, on the other hand, things are starting to look a little worrisome for psygib, right? He really didn't have a good showing in the previous stage, eventually having to play for survival in the Quake Pro League in a relegation match. He ended up winning that against Chance, 3-0, I believe. But after that win, he basically dropped out of the finals instantly. And so far, like I just mentioned, he hasn't really had a good showing this stage yet either. And that's very surprising because at the beginning of the Quake Pro League, we were really considering psygib to be top 3 NA, right? You had Rafa the Hang, and then psygib was basically the player with the best claim to having that third spot alongside nosfa. So it's interesting that those two players are now facing off against each other. But I think that a lot of psygib fans are hoping that this is the moment when things start to turn around, because if it doesn't, the psygib might once again face relegation.
It's one of those things, isn't it, where there's definitely a set of player that they don't do amazingly well in the Pro League itself, but they are also of a level where the challenges are hard to conquer them. I think that's more prominent in the Americas, for sure. There are some players kind of stuck in that almost limbo, we'll call it, where it's hard to get consistent results in Pro League, but challenges are almost no match, where you're safe, but barely safe. I think in the EU and CIS, that's a little bit different, as we do talk about the almost inevitability at this point, where we have the likes of Hron, we have the likes of Toxic, like coming back, and they're doing well in challenges, where they could very well make it into Pro League and stuff like that. You have no idea what to make of the results. It could be, we could see players like Cooler out of Pro League, and that's like, what? Who would ever predict or expect that? It's absolute insanity to even be discussing it. But I think give it 2 years of Pro League and player growth, this is just the point that we're at, isn't it? Now, we were having a bit of a delay. nosfa has joined the lobby, and we're now loading into Molten Falls. So sorry for the little gap between this, but thanks a lot for sticking with us. Looks like we'll be starting this first map as soon as possible, and Molten Falls is having its warm-up as we speak.
Indeed, this is going to be the first map of this series. I saw predictions heavily favor nosfa. Didn't get to see the exact ratio at the end, but it was pretty significantly skewed in favor of the lightning in a bottle from Brazil. So let's see if psygib can subvert those expectations and turn things around. As we start off on his point of view, he gets the mega site. Different strategy from Kilson earlier on this map. Kilson, as Anarchy, just popped the injection and went straight for the railgun to try and deny it. But in doing so, he did lose out on both major items. So psygib, perhaps a bit more careful, doesn't want to risk overextending this early on.
Now, definitely something we have not touched on is one of the first times today we get to see the complete difference of stack. Heavy versus light. They have the same movement and stuff, sure, but this is where it gets kind of out of hand very quickly. We mentioned that if Anarchy does not work out so hot, he can be pretty far behind. It is all about that early control, because if nosfa has it and psygib gets caught off spawn, he's pretty much hopeless. So the emphasis on this opening quarter is more prominent than ever. psygib's going to have to be careful. Uh-oh. 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 Bad start. Bad start. Flea, help.
Yeah. That's rough to see. psygib just getting rushed down, and then I don't know what that bounce pad was. Probably tried to read and expect nosfa to make his way out of the room and go for heavy already, but he was still just set up there waiting. And then that final rail did take him down easily enough. Rough start for psygib. And he's going to have to give up the mega as well, and that's been his item so far. Gets a nice little rail, but still 10 seconds before heavy spawns. This is going to be too difficult for him to just sit on and hold down if nosfa decides to commit, and that's exactly what the Brazilian player is doing. psygib waiting, lying in wait. Those are two big shotgun blasts to the face. nosfa left on around 25 points of health there, exactly 25 points of health even. And now psygib has an opportunity. He misses that rail. I think that rail would have landed just before mega was taken. And nosfa was railable, so that would have given psygib not only a frag, but also control of at least one of the major items. So it's unfortunate for him that that didn't work out that way.
Would have been a wonderful example over the importance of playing for not just the frag at the time, but the next one. psygib, well aware that he's likely to drop down, then he just positioned himself for 2-point blanks, and it did create what would have been a nice sequence at the end. Unfortunately for him, not able to get it. Now he does have a considerable amount of stack, and as long as he can keep his cooldown in check, almost having access to another injection, so that's not going to be the end of the world for him, but doesn't have a rocket launcher yet. So this close range fight, it's going to be LG or rail or bust, really. Does get some impressive damage, secures himself the heavy. nosfa opts to disengage. Okay, this is an opening for psygib. And now with the injection in play, an aggressive push, all of the weapons, the defensive rail comes out, but nosfa will drop right as Mega gets taken. psygib gives himself a frag on the board, but armor is going to be the next objective. But 12 seconds until the heavy spawns. Watch out for these rails. That one doesn't hit its mark, though. Hard shot to make. Oh, dear.
Oh, the rocket.
Oh, let's go, psygib!
The rocket temporarily helped nosfa survive by getting blasted up into the air. His opponent kind of mistimed that follow-up rocket, didn't do any damage. So psygib stuck with it, but it will now be a tied game, 2-2. psygib landing some excellent damage towards the end there, but nosfa is very quick in setting up for the Mega and landing some good rails as well. He knows that his opponent just doesn't have the stack to really take any fight right now, and nosfa is just going to exploit that mercilessly. Ouch.
Major push indeed. Spawning with no armor, the lights, the bane they face. Mega's going to be that next objective, but again, nosfa pushing really far ahead, and psygib kind of trying to compete for it, but there's only so much he can do in this situation. Now, nosfa does get caught, actually, by the LG. Totally gives it up. Bit of a fumble, perhaps.
I do think so, yeah. nosfa just didn't land the railgun going up there. And psygib actually did a fair bit of damage with the LG. If nosfa had managed to connect with the rail, he still would have been in a somewhat decent position to at least contest, but missing that shot just meant that he gave up so much damage for free. And now psygib is just charging in head first, using the injection to cushion a lot of the blow, and that Mega spawns at just the right time.
Both players are rather even, split on their stack, but nosfa has other plans. He takes that light, just near defensive shots from psygib, though. Playing into his hands. I kind of like that delay. A minor delay, just so nosfa can time the heavy perfectly.
nosfa sticking around, confident in his aim with the heavy machine gun, but of course he just didn't have the same weaponry to work with, and that allowed psygib to make a quick switch to the rail and do a fair bit to him. Now look at the heavy machine gun damage, that is pretty nasty, but psygib, of course, has the high ground in the weapons, and nosfa had not been able to compensate for the lack of an arsenal, and ends up dropping yet another frag. And now psygib, for the first time this map, is in the lead. I don't think a lot of people were expecting this.
Surprise rail from behind. Kind of surprised that psygib didn't hear that, actually. I kind of almost wonder if his nail gun was making so much noise that maybe he didn't quite catch it, but nosfa trying to set up as many of these rail angles as he can. You know, hitting a rail on a light can be so catastrophic compared to everyone else. An aggressive push, and one that secures heavy easily and keeps him way more healthy than his opponent. Massive delay between these two items as well. This could be the absolute turning point that nosfa pulls away for another time. An aggressive push. Oh, wow! nosfa loses sight of him.
Yeah, psygib just kind of slipped on by, hugged nosfa, and then just ended up behind him.
That was weird.
And nosfa just completely lost track of him. A lot of his stack burned, but still no harm, no fall for the most part. It's still a tied game. But that peak, that cost him a fair bit. nosfa now left with just 38 points of health. No armor to work with. Mega still not up for another few seconds. He doesn't want anything to do with it. He's going to heavy, but that's exactly where psygib is at. nosfa can almost guarantee you that nosfa was expecting psygib to just go straight for Mega, and that he was not expecting to run into anyone over on the LG side of the map, but that was exactly where psygib was headed for. So nosfa escaping, barely so, and is now just in survival mode. He can't really contest for anything. He's just holding a good position where he can try and manipulate a choke point and has an exit route at the ready. And that's a lot of good damage, but he's still so tender. One rocket to the face will spell disaster for nosfa.
I was a bit nervous for him on the drop down because he only had one rocket left. Either way, this is that twist of fate we discussed. Anarchy getting himself control. They have a similar mobility, right? That gives a similar game plan, you would think, but now... Oh, perfect time for psygib to get a frag right as he activates the injection too, so he's nice and healthy. Yes, he could do with a little bit of armor, but now with a lead. This is the ball in the court of psygib. The surprise attack from nosfa. Perfect timing as he gets the light armor as well. That's a great start for him, keeping things competitive. Who's going to be able to get it?
That was a really good read by nosfa. He just knew that psygib was holding the angle with the rail, didn't show his face, and just baited it out until the very last second. Now, unfortunately, psygib still has the better control of the map. Good rail there as well. And another run to boot. And now nosfa is actually finding himself in a difficult position. Just jumps around the corner, LG on LG. This is risky because psygib still has the injection and he has the smaller hitbox. So nosfa realizes he can't stick around. If he decides to go all in, he will lose. And that's just not worth it at this point in the game.
I love the patience from psygib as well, sitting at just the range where using the acid spit was kind of a do I or do I not, because if he uses the acid spit, he's going to be out of action from LG for a bit, just taking a guaranteed stream at the same time. Difficult choice to make, but one that didn't even matter in the end. 2 frags in the lead now is psygib, and he's just about to get another injection, which is going to make him not only more stacked currently, but more stacked to come in the next fight if he uses the injection in the middle of it. Acid spit to try and take heavy. A drop down from psygib. He hasn't even had to use his injection yet. He uses it for the push, takes a rail, but he gets the shotgun to finish the job. And by all means, this is pretty much done. Unless nosfa can land something now. That is the best case scenario. Can he get something from this, Flea?
Absolutely, he still has a shot, but it has to happen sooner rather than later. Nice little rocket to just feel out where psygib is at, take a little bit of chip damage to the stack.
Surprise!
And now he's gonna find him again.
Oh
One
my
more rocket
lord!
will do it. nosfa, hang on, this is a 1 frag game. Now psygib does get a favorable spawn. Wait, they just crossed! Oh goodness, nosfa had such an opportunity. The moment that psygib went up the bounce pad, nosfa dropped down and they just paused in midair. If nosfa had held the high ground, that would have been a tight game by now. Oh, he's gonna find him!
nosfa, no way! There's no way 3 times you desperately need to find your opponent, you find them instantly. He's brought us into a sudden death, and there's a gap between the major items. If nosfa takes this heavy, oh my days, psygib is definitely in trouble. Now he does take the heavy, but he eats a rail in the process. What a start now, nosfa making this comeback happen. He had to have a perfect 30 seconds and somehow finds a way. Oh, the rail. This rail fight, critical. He lands it. psygib's in big trouble now. He's about to get an injection. But there's 10 seconds until heavy. This is a choice to make. psygib, what do you do here, mate?
Good decision by nosfa not to just all in on that one just yet. Just play it calmly. You know this is such an important final moments of the game. Go for Mega first. And now he's gonna find psygib with the wrong weapon out. psygib has to leave the room just before the small armor spawns, and he was really banking on securing that, because now look at this. nosfa, 120 points of armor versus psygib on what, 7? This is really difficult for the American player.
Now this is psygib's potential last stand here on this first map. The major thing to factor in is that he doesn't have an LG, he doesn't have a rocket launcher, he pushes in, he gets a whole bunch of damage from the nail gun, but that is as good as it's gonna get. nosfa pulling off a unbelievable comeback in the closing 30 seconds. He had to do everything perfect. On top of the fact that this is a giant map where just getting a perfect read on someone's escape and just bumping into them like that, you rarely see that once, let alone 3 times.
I mean, once that juke happened at the bounce battle, though I don't even think it was intentional on psygib's end, I thought that probably was the end of it, but nosfa still somehow managed to find his opponent one more time. And that was all it took to equalize the scoreline and bring it all the way into overtime. psygib had a strong showing, though. I don't think a lot of people were expecting that, especially if you look at how the predictions were ratioed. Most people very much expected this to be a one-sided win for nosfa, but in the end, psygib almost took it. He almost brought it home.
Oh, and then the LG fight. The LG was so extreme from nosfa that he pushes psygib so far out that he can't get a clean escape. If he could go through that door frame, who knows what could have happened.
And that nail gun was, I mean, what was it, 2 2 more nails and it would have been
I was pointing out that he only had a rail and a nail gun, and somehow psygib still almost won that fight. Like, I'd have been like, how did he do that? But tough pill to swallow though, Flea. A win that by all means, unless the clutch comeback is made, was his. Clutch comeback was made anyway. And now we're going to be jumping into Awoken, the Battle of the Lights, but it's going to be different utility all around. Athena for nosfa. And if you haven't seen Athena play before, you're in for a treat. Nyx having the wall jump and the ghost walk, the invisibility. This is going to be a battle of, I think, absolute utility of the ghost walk versus grapple at all times. And the utility that the grappling hook gives Athena on this map is really strong, especially with the hands of nosfa.
Champion-wise, this is definitely the most interesting matchup that I think we've seen all day. A lot of it has been pretty standard, but this, not so much, right? Athena is still a pretty strong, or rather pretty in the right hand. She's a very strong pick on the map that is Awoken, but you don't see her played all that often because it is a risk. If control slips out of your hand, then you're basically left running for your life, only able to use that hook to escape bad situations time and time again without ever really amounting to anything. So nosfa, if psygib once again gets off to a really good start, maintains control for a while, this is likely to be a lot more difficult for him to make the kind of comeback happen that we just saw in Molten Falls.
Now, with the lights, you always have to look at what utility is having to be used early. Unfortunately for nosfa, a little bit of a fumble on the grappling hook, so now he's actually lost all 3 of them. Not the most amazing start, but as long as you don't concede a frag, it could always be worse. But with only a rocket in hand, the denial of psygib is already apparent. Try to stop the LG from coming out at least a little bit. nosfa able to get away, taking minimal damage indeed, and they don't have the Unholy Trinity either. There's still a rail missing from nosfa. Well, not a rail? Yeah, rail. I was looking at the wrong screen for a second. It's the rail for psygib. It's the LG that psygib doesn't have.
Out comes the drop down. Rockets won't connect for either player. That's a good rail. nosfa finds the angle, but takes 91 damage of his own.
I like that prediction rocket. What a read.
Indeed. Almost as a psygib meant to say, like, okay, you hit me for 90 damage. All right, I'll do you for 91 after that one, just to keep things nice and even and ever so slightly in his favor. But no all-in fights just yet. I feel like that one drop-down might have just been a mistake from psygib, so he just used the Ghost Walk instantly when he realized that nosfa was there. But other than that, this has been a very respectful and rather slow-paced game so far.
You always see people talking about Nyx. We've talked about different champions in different interviews and stuff like that, and Nyx, there's always the saying of, you got to catch her twice. She has that very much get out of jail free card, which allows those highly defensive players that want to keep the opponent on the end of a string. That one moment you could be caught out of position, the Ghost Walk comes into play. And then it's, you have to essentially do a lot of that work all over again on a map like this. It becomes even more frustrating. If psygib can have this highly defensive position. Oh, I like that from nosfa.
Yeah.
Saving himself there, that would have been a bad time to get caught. But speaking of bad time to get caught, Mr. Rail at close range Ghost Walk. We're out of there, baby.
And now nosfa has a bit of an opportunity because he knows that he just burned the Ghost Walk and that his ability, the hooks, come back a lot quicker than psygib's one-time burn of invisibility. Good rail damage again from nosfa.
Oh, he was narrowly able to almost hit that second shot. Didn't quite land the mark, though.
Very little delay between the items, so neither player really in a position to get that consistent control going. If anyone can, it's nosfa, because he's so fast with those hooks. If he takes away heavy and just goes straight through the doorway where the railgun spawns, he might be able to get both of them within, like, what, 4 seconds of one another, or even less than that. But, that's risky. That's risky. If psygib is waiting to counter that, could very easily spiral out of control. And now we get to the first real nice close-up fight. nosfa fakes an opening 100 damage rocket.
Oh, the escape!
Yeah. Close
psygib.
one.
He gets the perfect call out, holding his mark, just waiting for the opponent to sit there and take all the items, but nosfa, this is where mobility comes into play above all else. I don't think any other champion in the game could have survived that.
nosfa doing exactly what I said, going straight for Mega after Heavy. Unfortunately for him, he was just a little bit too late, because the timing had changed slightly, so there weren't 3 seconds between the items anymore. But first real attempt for nosfa to get full control after that move. But psygib is playing a strong defensive game, really not using the Ghost Walk aggressively, at least not yet, but just holding on to it in case he gets caught in a bad situation to avoid damage. And well, we saw it earlier at LG, right? He avoids damage by using the Ghost Walk and then pushes in for the frag, but nosfa did manage to escape.
You could see in that rail 1v1 that took place near LG. Hang on a minute. nosfa looking for those defensive shots, the aggressive push through the teleporter, but again, nosfa just able to slip his way through the wall just in the nick of time. And I think that it's Heavy being free for psygib. nosfa always able to just collect the scraps that remain. The aggressive push. He knows the Mega's been taken, but can he still punish? They trade rail for rail. nosfa sticking around. A bold play. A brave decision. He's still alive, but it feels like no one so far has been able to get that solid frag yet.
So far, both players have done pretty much the exact same amount of damage, 1,000 points of damage each, which should be enough to kill a light champion many times over. But indeed, it has just been a very respectful battle for the time being. Neither player giving up a single frag. We've seen a few aggressive pushes, right? There have been times where either player got the upper hand, and then you see nosfa going with the grapple hook, but psygib escapes by using the Ghost Walk. Or you see psygib going aggressively, and nosfa escapes using the hooks. So it really hasn't led to anything. That fumble, though, this could be risky.
Oh,
for psygib,
no!
that is. That's not
there
fun.
were mistakes either way, though. psygib pushing forward and already having the Ghost Walk in his mind on that push. But then in the opener, just doing such little damage that the second you've used the Ghost Walk, it's like, wait, why did I use it now? This wasn't the one.
Yeah.
And then you've done no damage to push forward. nosfa capitalized, though, and got that close range rocket. They've been playing so carefully for just shy of 6 minutes, but a mistake that could be catastrophic for psygib. 2 frags down. Oh, and that rail hurts.
Yeah.
Rails versus lights never feels good, and he's going to drop.
And now Mega does go to psygib, though. Oh, he had the opportunity to escape. psygib, he had the Ghost Walk at the ready, could have made it out of there as soon as he picked up that Mega, but I think he figured nosfa was a bit weaker than that he could take the fight and still escape with the Ghost Walk if he needed to, but nosfa was very quick on the switch to the railgun and is now 4 frags ahead already.
Oh, and there's the grapple to completely shut down the mid-air. psygib was looking for maximum damage. Couldn't find it. Misses the rail, though. That's going to be a clean punish there from psygib. Super shotgun to say, you need to hit those rails, mate. But still significantly far behind. Awoken can be one of those close quarters maps, right, where the snowball effect is real, but with the mobility and effect, that's where I'm not so sure. nosfa has slipped away from so many bad situations that he can start to play more defensive now if he wants to.
Oh, and now psygib. I think that's the first time we've seen like a purely aggressive Ghost Walk, right? We've seen him pop it in the middle of engagements as he had already dealt more opening damage than his opponent, but that was the first time psygib has just really used the Ghost Walk and then just pushed in to try and catch his opponent by surprise. And this should be a frag, it will be, but look how little he has to fall back on. He might be able to secure heavy, but that is still very risky. Luckily for him, nosfa, spawning on the other side of the map, didn't really have the weaponry he needed to make an immediate push on that, so psygib does restack with the health levels that are up. I like the wall jumping right there, pretty solid evasive maneuvers, but missing the rail, that's just given nosfa pretty much a free Mega to work with and allows him to delay that comeback ever longer.
Now another push being made. Using the speed, psygib not quite able to land that rail, though. The aggressive push here from nosfa, though. If he can take both of these items, you said, you know, denying the comeback, it's going to become a miserable experience for psygib. Now, he does take a light armor. Lets him soak up a little bit more of that tri-bolt than he otherwise would want to worry about. But time is not on his side. Now, he's going to soak up a few of these lights up near Banana, but He needs to make something happen. Oh! nosfa with the position. Cheeky position. Do not think psygib was ready for that one. Those vertical shots are looking real good, but again, there's the grappling hook to escape the situation. A push, a big push, but a push that psygib is prepared for. As you're not going to get that twice.
nosfa perhaps slightly underestimating how fast psygib would get there. And just how close to the edge he would be perched up with a super shotgun in hand. And now it's a one-frag game. Anything can still happen. nosfa has the high ground, but psygib should be able to take away the heavy. Oh, he's actually going to go aggressive once more. But you can't match the speed. And that should have been a railgun shot. Bit of a mistake by psygib switching to the rockets right there. A second earlier, sure. But at that point, nosfa just used the hook to get clean. Half a...
And I think at this position, he's just going to do whatever he can to play the game of angles, or lack of, in this sense. 30 seconds for nosfa to try and get some bonus rails when he can. Bonus damage, but there's the 100, and just like that, psygib finds it! I can't believe it!
That was just a very unorthodox push right there. It's not a rocket jump that you see very often, just straight up above the teleporter, taking your opponent over at the staircase. Not something you see every day. That's exactly why it was so effective. Now the rockets are solid, and somehow with 2 seconds left to go, what? psygib, he was what, 4 frags down with 2 minutes to go, and then all of a sudden shifts into a higher gear and completely takes back control. Excellent, a very surprising, clever plays towards the end, and nosfa tried unsuccessfully to get out with the hook, but wasn't able to.
Feels a little bit like nosfa will be scratching his head at that second to last frag, the one that took place near heavy, where he's trying to still sit around and stop you from just being able to pick up whatever you want without getting punished for it. But at the same time, one would think, looking at the stack difference, that I think he overstayed his welcome. That rocket jump, while it was a fantastic rocket jump and definitely took him by surprise, it almost feels like that situation shouldn't have happened in the first place.
Indeed, I'm not quite sure about the positioning there either. And now we're getting to see some of those frags being replayed, and this is where it all started quite nicely, right? It was 3 minutes, 4 frags is what it seems like. Also, really don't understand the nosfa push right there.
I mean, the fact that he found a 100 damage rocket there is unbelievable. I mean, you just look at how little of nosfa was actually exposed, yet he still hit a direct. What an animal.
I think the biggest tipping point was when nosfa went for that mega. I really don't quite understand the reasoning behind it, right? You know the one I'm talking about. nosfa takes away
he got
heavy,
super shotgunned,
but he takes a fair bit. Yeah, he takes a fair bit of damage, and instead of just getting through the teleporter, going to LG, maybe getting, you know, the small armor there, some health bubbles, whatever, he just goes straight for the bounce pad, trying to get onto mega as well. Like, I don't know if he had or thought he had more grapple hooks and was able to dodge the shots or just get onto mega faster, but he ended up just going straight up the bounce head while his opponent psygib was waiting. And I think that was really like the tipping point. If nosfa had just stayed clear from his opponent from that point out, he probably could have run away with the scoreline.
Well, well, well. That brings us into a final map scenario where it's not just to soften the blow of a 3-0. This is to decide who's going to win the series in general. As it's going to be matchup-wise, Vale of Pnath, and then the BJ from nosfa and psygib rocking that keel. So again, it's going to be a vast difference in stack, but differently to this, BJ Baskovic being able to give himself the dual wield is going to be so good against any heavy. If he's got 2 of those LGs, he's pretty much good to throw down.
I also love just the confidence psygib every single time when they ask him if he's ready to start the game. His answer is the same: born. He says, I was born ready. He says it every single time. Never get tired of seeing that. And after the previous map, I mean, he definitely looks like he was born ready. That was a very solid comeback, clearly showing just how focused he was until the very last moment of that map. And now it all comes down to this one. I think this was a closer game than a lot of people were expecting, right? Last time they played, nosfa won, clean 3-0 victory. psygib has been struggling a fair bit this stage, whereas nosfa has been coasting through many of his matchups. So it's good to see that for the first time today, we're not getting a 3-0. It's 1-1, and it all comes down to this.
I think that's my favorite response to being asked if you're ready I've ever seen is born. It's been that way for about 2 years at this point, and I still can't help but crack a smile every time I see it. However, the defensive shot from psygib to at least say, no challenge for you. I'm going to take this rail, and the game of weapon denial can begin. Now, that can only last so long, but if psygib's able to get a strong rail game here on nosfa, it doesn't matter if he pulls out a dual wield or not. But Keel on Vale, why is he so good? The grenades. Pineapples all over the place, and so many corridors, tight spaces. Area denial, spamming round corners. I always remember people asking, where's the grenade launcher? Well, Keel is the grenade launcher.
Indeed he is. The man has got 2 of them, 1 for each shoulder. There's already a pretty significant delay between the items right now. 7 seconds between Mega and Heavy. This could be something for whoever comes out on top of this fight. So far it's looking like it's nosfa, pushing psygib out of position, but he can't just go for the jump himself. Nice little finesse right there. nosfa dodging the LG, but he takes so much damage. Oh my goodness.
He takes so much damage and dishes out barely anything. I can only assume there, Flea, looking at it. I didn't see it from nosfa's point of view, but you know when you're getting flung around and it's kind of hard to get good spread? Had to be it.
That was difficult. psygib holding his ground. Definitely figured that nosfa would be the one to take that frag. But he will do it now.
Misses
Tied
the
up.
shot.
Yeah. Yeah, psygib, I mean, he was really weak, but he knew that he had to peek, because otherwise nosfa would be able to steal away Heavy and then just rush him down or take full control. So psygib knew he had to go for that peek, even though he was very low.
An aggressive push once more from psygib, but one to err on the side of extreme caution because you haven't got a rocket and you know your opponent does. We're going to try to get some bonus damage, but we do not want to put ourselves in a position kind of like this, where there's nowhere to run and evidently nowhere to hide. Trying to set up to shut down the Heavy perhaps, but I do not think he's going to be able to stop it. Might be able to get a rail, and he will be. Okay, that's going to shut down some of the benefits of Heavy. Pretty even Stevens on the stack so far. But with that rail to start things off, maybe not so much. Mega in play. Likely to go to psygib, but again, shutting down potential damage. I like that rail. And in between rail shots, getting those grenades on deck. One of the only champions that can still damage you, even if the rail has come out. 1-2 for nosfa. Keeping himself alive, and that's going to be the important thing for now.
Little fumble with the movement on the escape almost cost him. He got caught on the door frame. psygib had landed a rail. Would have been a tied game, but nosfa still manages to get clear of the room. And now is in position to take the Mega as well. Oh, psygib still pushing on through, but he's taking so much damage. He needs to find this shot. Who will land it first? It will be psygib. 5 points of health. Confident with the rail.
That little smirk from nosfa on the camera. The absolute acceptance of, all right, mate, you got me there. I understand. But I can't believe he's able to keep himself alive here, Flea. These rails out of nowhere. It almost looks like it's on the side of arrogance, but I'd call it confidence.
Oh my god. Those 2 rockets. I really don't think that nosfa was expecting that. He was just waiting down below, and all of a sudden he takes 110 points of damage in terms of rocket output and has to push on through.
And that colossal amount of damage from the LG near the stairs. nosfa pushing in really hard, but that one was basically just a free frag given up. A Heavy to be taken. As long as the grenades are in play and it's an LG versus LG, it's basically 2v1. Speaking of 2v1, how about 2 LGs, mate? Pull it out! Oh, 100 damage on the rocket, though. psygib, is he going to be able to pick it up? Waits for the free. Oh, I love the patience. He waits for him to not be able to challenge.
I mean, he absolutely knew that his opponent was going to go for the item, the Mega, and so he just sat there and waited. He was like, I know you are screamingly low right now. Oh! Mid-jump, rail to the face, hello. nosfa. Slapping, clapping right back at his opponent. But it is psygib who gets the better positioning for the Mega. This has been a massive brawl for these past 2 minutes. Ketchup, no consistent control for either player, just constant bouts of aggression and pushes to try and dethrone your opponent and get the upper hand.
Oh yeah, when we said these 2 players throw down, we meant it. And Vale of Pnath, I mean, it is where those that throw down, throw down. Just about hit that halfway point. Oh, a nice little vertical rail from nosfa, and we're actually going to engage the dual wield, but it feels like too obvious of an advance. Again, the cheeky little smile of, okay, I get it. I think he knows he's going in for these really confident pushes, but psygib is just prepared. But again, they trade that damage back and forth. psygib controlling this high ground has been everything, because a lot of it has been nosfa pushing in, and he takes so much damage before he can even start to fight. But now psygib is weak. No armor in play. Even less so now nosfa's able to pick up that heavy, but there's a little bit more. An obvious take of the light! Oh, nosfa was one step ahead. Let's go.
Oh my goodness. The reaction right there. That rocket was beautiful. Straight through the grating. You could even see him look down, being like, is he going to show up and show his face? Can I go for the small armor? Rocket, straight on through to the face.
Oh!
But what is this? Immediately turns it right back around. psygib extending this lead.
That's a lot of LG damage.
Yeah.
If nosfa can do even any bonus damage, wait a minute, can he even get the frag from that? He survived! He was looking almost at death's door, but the damage and, importantly, placement of rockets, the denial, to stop psygib from being able to push forward. Now, nosfa is weak. Make no mistake. Tender. He's having to play the game of audio so far. Listen out for where his opponent's going to be. Keel, I mean, he's like a bull in a china shop. Man makes so much noise with those big feet of his.
Nice rail as well. nosfa knows that he cannot show his face for Mega now. He's been completely zoned out of this next item. Just look at the stack. psygib has a monstrous amount of health and armor to work with. 165 health, 165 armor, and nosfa is just waiting for his ability to get him back up to 25-0. That's all. It does get a heavy, but will it even really
matter? Alive?
Somehow, yeah. psygib misses two important rails.
It feels a lot like nosfa's goal there was just to deny heavy, likely to die. But that took a little bit longer. Now, normally that would benefit him if he was the one in the lead. But newsflash, he's not. He's 4 behind right now, and psygib working on a much larger stack. Importantly, having all the weapons. They don't manage to quite get the rails there, but psygib, he knows his opponent is still only likely to have a rail. Maybe now a rocket, because he's on the bottom. It's fair to assume he's picked one up. Oh my god, he's knocked down! No heavy for you!
Good play from psygib as well. The moment he knocks his opponent down, he just spams a few grenades down at the teleporter entrance so that he assures really that nosfa can't pull a quickie on him and just run for the item. And now with 5 frags ahead and 2 minutes to go, this is becoming incredibly difficult for nosfa. psygib is the one who's been dealing most of the damage, but also secures most of the items. nosfa's got 11 major items versus psygib on 19, so the American player is really putting up a good show right now. Everything is working out for him. He's landing his shots, and he's in full control of most of the items.
I mean, you just need to ask yourself. We've been looking at this map from vast majority psygib's point of view. It has been his absolute control of the top of this map. nosfa has been left most of this map with the stuff that's on the bottom. When he does push in, psygib is more than prepared for it. This is the first time, arguably the entire map, when nosfa has been the one that could sit up top if he wants to. But now, he can't particularly fortify because he has to make something happen. He has to push forward. Doesn't manage to really get anything from his dual wield either. So now he's going to be pretty much playing championless champion, besides the health regeneration, and that's it. psygib in a perfect position. The LG is really good. nosfa, okay. On any other map, would say it's impossible. But 5 frags in a minute, it's Vale. If he can find him and just pepper it, maybe, but nah. I think maybe too much of a dream.
The problem is also really just the starting stack that you're up against, right? psygib is running Keel. It's essentially impossible to get consistent refrags on that, the kind that you need to get 5 kills in just 1 minute, right? Because what's going to happen is, okay, you get a frag, you try to chase your opponent down, say you find him straight off the bat. psygib has got 125 health, and of course that massive starting armor stack to work with as well, plus his ability, the grenades as well, and psygib has been landing quite a lot of those. That's 50 damage a pop.
If nosfa could somehow find a way to harness both dual wield permanently, that would somehow be a chance. But not in Quake Champions land. That's going to be a victory for psygib, able to take out nosfa 2-1, and really putting his greatest skills to use. That combat skill, being able to brawl, bring out those hard and heavy champions and just bully on this map. I think that's a great result for psygib, and hopefully, I think the start of a recent climb. I'd love to see psygib go to the psygib of old, right? The old form that he had. This is the kind of map that you would see in, I think, Season 1, Stage 1 of Pro League.
Yep.
2 years ago, when they used to play, this is how it would go, but not so much recently. We even saw it in the audience prediction. A lot of people favored nosfa, and for good reason. Results don't lie, and neither does recent history, but this was history-changing, perhaps. I think the start of a new psygib. I'd love to see it.
That rocket, that was so good. Straight through the grating, a very decisive moment, I felt like, for the next few minutes at least. And indeed, I'm fully with you on what you just said. This is good news for a psygib fan. So far, his stage has been pretty inconsistent, to say the least. He beat Sip, but then he lost to Rafa, Zenekun, Maxter, and The Hang. So getting to knock down nosfa, a player who has been in really good shape, has gotten some very convincing wins in these past few weeks, that might just be the tipping point. This might give psygib the momentum that he needs to get back into those upper echelons of American Quake. So really strong showing, a deserved victory, and also one of the more tense games we've seen today. The only series that hasn't been a 3-0.
That was a thorough GG. I think I definitely call that our highlight series of the day as far as I'm concerned, because it absolutely delivered, and it is just a great chance to see what psygibs bring into the table. I just love watching him on heavy champions. There's just something about his control over them, and the fact that he's such a combat-focused player. Bit of a match made in heaven, I guess. You can see why he's so good in game modes like 2v2, where if he needs to get frags, he'll just do it. Yeah. You know, make no mistake, ask no questions, man will get the job down. But that is the last of what I would call the first act of this week at Pro League. We have our 2 featured matchups about to begin. Our first is going to be us remaining in Americas, Rafa versus Chain. In 5 minutes, we'll be back with the world champ.